Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. It's 3 p.m. We are at 19 Parnell Street, the town office for Greater Madawaska. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of council and staff, I'd like to welcome you to this public meeting regarding the community improvement plan of the township. We appreciate you taking time to participate. Public input is an important part of the planning process, and today's meeting is an opportunity for residents, businesses, and property owners to learn more about the proposed plan and share their thoughts. A community improvement plan, also referred to as CIP, is a tool available to municipalities under Section 28 of the Planning Act. It allows a municipality to establish programs that can support improvements and invest within the community. These programs may include financial incentives for things like building improvements, accessibility upgrades, housing initiatives, and projects that support economic development. The goal of exploring a CIP for Greater Madawaska is to help encourage investment in our community, support local businesses, and identify opportunities to strengthen our local economy while improving the places we live and work. I want to emphasize that no decisions are being made this afternoon. The purpose of today's meeting is to introduce the draft Community Improvement Plan, CIP, and explain how it could work and hear feedback from the public. Following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for councils and members of the public to ask questions and share comments. Your feedback will help inform the next steps of council considerations, whether to move forward with this plan. With that, I'll turn this over to our planner, Ashley, who will walk us through the proposed community improvement plan and explain the potential program that could be included. And thank you once again, and I'd ask everybody in the audience here today to turn off their cell phones, please. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Ashley now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I hear we have an awesome turnout in the office there, so that's great news. We'll end up hearing from council anyways on if they have any questions throughout this process, and by all means, if there's anyone afterwards who's watching the video, they can touch base with us, and we can certainly answer some questions as well. So with that, we'll just get the PowerPoint presentation up quickly. Okay, so again, just a little bit of an introduction. Good afternoon, and I'm Ashley Bilodeau. I am the planner that's working with the township on the proposed community improvement plan that we are presenting today in draft form. My intentions today here are to walk through what a community improvement plan is, why the township is exploring one, what type of programs could be included, and how the process moves forward from here. So after the presentation, we open the floor for public feedback or questions and concerns that you may have in regards to the draft community improvement plan and the information that's being presented today. So to the next slide. So before we begin, I again want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend. Public input is important and part of the planning process, and today is an opportunity to learn about the proposed program and share thoughts. Feedback also helps inform the next steps as council considers whether to move forward with the plan. There are a few objectives in terms of today's meeting. So first, we want to introduce the draft community improvement plan, explain how it works. Second is to discuss some of the potential programs and incentives that could be available if council chooses to adopt the plan. Third, we want to hear from residents, businesses, and property owners about what type of improvements and investments or funding availability would be most beneficial in the community. And we did partake in there was a survey that was put out, and we did get some great feedback from that as well. And finally, the meeting will provides an opportunity to ask any questions that may be outstanding. It's important to note, as the mayor has mentioned, that no decisions are being made tonight, and council will consider whether to adopt the CIP at a future meeting. So next slide. In terms of an agenda, I figured it might be valuable to put this together so I stay on track. We'll begin by explaining what the community improvement plan is and how municipalities use them. Then we'll talk about why the township is exploring a CIP and how it aligns with community priorities. We'll also review the types of incentive programs that could be introduced and that are being recommended to council. After that, we'll talk about funding and partnerships, including the township's partnership with Renfrew County and their HYPE program. And then we'll review the planning process and next steps before opening the floor up for questions. So next slide, we'll get into the nitty-gritty. Next slide. So community improvement plan is a planning tool, as we mentioned earlier. It is available to all municipalities under the Planning Act. It is one of the only tools that allows municipalities to offer financial incentives to support projects that improve properties, encourage investment, and support economic development. So many municipalities are using community improvement plans to support things like business revitalization and housing improvements, brownfield redevelopment, and accessibility upgrades. It's also being used for climate and energy efficiency things as well. So in simple terms, the way I'd kind of like to highlight it is it's designed to encourage investment in your community, and it allows the municipality to offer programs, and that could be in the form of either grants or rebates to help offset some of those costs associated with improvements or redevelopment projects. The goal is to encourage projects that benefit the community, and what you really want to try to do is make sure it aligns with your municipal priorities that are identified in your strategic plan and your official plan and zoning and all those planning documents. So important to highlight too what a CIP is not. So it's a community improvement plan does not change zoning or land use designations, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we compare the secondary plan to the community improvement plan. But yeah, very important to note that there's no zoning changes or designation changes as a result of introducing this. It also doesn't require anyone to participate. So property owners and businesses can choose whether or not they wish to apply for a program. There's no mandatory requirement to apply. And finally, the participation does not guarantee funding. So even if somebody was anxious to apply, it gets evaluated by council or a delegated authority and assessed as to whether or not you want to supply that money to that project. So it doesn't mean that every single project that comes through is going to be every eligible project that comes through gets funded. There are different factors that kind of go into evaluating them and whether or not the budget's there and allocated appropriately. So just wanted to highlight that quickly too before we move forward. Next slide. Next slide again. Thank you. So why the township is exploring a CIP? So the township is exploring that community improvement plan as a way to support investment and improvements across the community. This can include helping businesses improve their properties, encouraging tourism-related investments, or supportive housing initiatives. So those are the three goals that we've sort of highlighted here in the community improvement plan as drafted. The goal is to create a program that helps strengthen the local economy while supporting improvements to buildings and properties throughout the township. More specifically, the CIP is intended to support local businesses and tourism, encourage improvements to building and properties, and help reduce barriers to development. Another thing to mention here is that it is applicable to all areas of Greater Madawaska. It's not specific to a certain area as we have it drafted right now. So ultimately, the goal is to create conditions that encourage private investment and economic activity in Greater Madawaska. Next slide. So I did want to get into the difference between the secondary plan and community improvement plan. Having, two land use or planning act regulated plans moving forward can sometimes get confusing on which is which, and what are the ins and outs of each of these and why are we doing both. So two different planning tools that serve two different purposes. So a secondary plan focuses on your long-term land use and growth. It helps guide where development should occur and how an area evolves over time. The secondary plan is specific, right now it's specific to Calabogie in particular. So you're having that, area specific secondary plan being created to drive future development. Whereas the community improvement plan is more financially, it's a financial incentive. So it helps support projects that align with that vision. So in other words, I think the way you can look at it is the secondary plan sets the direction, and then the CIP can help support projects that help achieve that vision. Next slide. So as I previously mentioned, the draft community improvement plan is structured around three key areas. So these areas reflect the types of projects the township would like to support through program in potential incentive programs. The first focus was housing, where the goal is to help reduce barriers and encourage attainable housing, so attainable and affordable housing options. The second focus area is more towards economic development, which includes projects that support tourism, agricultural diversification, and rural economic growth. And then the third focus was related to local businesses, where programs could support things like facade improvements, accessibility upgrades, signage improvements, or other property improvements. So next slide. So I grab my notes here too, because I'm going to get into these a little bit more, but the draft plan also does include several potential programs that could support improvement across the three focus areas. I just want to highlight these a bit more detail because they are pretty important. So in terms of the housing program, the three programs that are being proposed right now are the Accessibility Improvement Grant, which is meant to support the installation of ramps and automatic doors and accessibility upgrades. The proposed grant value or rebate for that one is 50% of eligible costs up to $2,500 per project. And the key condition would be that it must meet AODA, which is the Accessibility for Ontario Disability Act, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. But it has to meet those standards. The second one is the planning and building fee rebate. So this reduces financial barriers to attainable and affordable housing by rebating or waiving applicable township fees. So think of it as somebody's coming into the municipality and the property may not be zoned appropriately to allow like a higher density of residential development, which would allow it to become more affordable or attainable. What this program would do is it would provide a grant value or rebate of about 100%, up to 100% of eligible township planning and building fees, up to a certain limit, and we've recommended the $2,500 per project here. Here, the key condition that we placed in here is that it has to, it applies only to new attainable or affordable housing projects that meet the CMHC or the HYPE, which is the Community Improvement Plan for Renfrew County's definitions. The third was the tax increment financing. So this is an offset or relief of tax increases from improvements. So this one here sort of, if somebody were to come in with a building project, what it does is it alleviates any increase in taxes that comes out of that new development happening for a certain period of time. The recommendation for the grant value or rebate here is a 5-year term. So essentially what happens is it incrementally increases over a 5-year term, and it would be up to a maximum of $25,000. So the key condition here is it has to be large scale rehabilitation or redevelopment of buildings, and it must align with the CIP goals. The next one is the Business and Revitalization Program. So a few in here, Facade Improvement Grant, Signage Improvement Grants. Those two there are about essentially improving the building's exterior and enhancing commercial areas and modernizing and improving business signage. So they both are, again, grant values of 50% of eligible costs with a maximum of $2,500 and I think $1,500 for the signs. So $2,500 for facade improvements and $1,500 for the signs. Accessibility Improvement Grants is also eligible for the businesses here. Landscaping and Parking Enhancement Grants, which is to improve the safety and beautification and site functionality through landscaping or parking upgrades. And again, that's at the 50% of eligible costs with the $2,500. And again, the tax increment financing and planning and building fee rebate are also tapped onto that one as well. The third area of focus is in the economic development and sustainability programs. And here you see the agritourism and rural business development grant. This is to encourage diversification, farm gate retail, and tourism related upgrades, more so in our rural areas. And again, 50% of eligible costs for this one with a up to a maximum of $2,500 per project. And then we also have the Energy Efficiency and Sustainability Grant, which is again just support that energy efficient or low carbon systems and retrofits. Same again, grant value and rebate, the 50% with the max of $2,500. And then the Study and Design Grant. So this one here would support preliminary design, feasibility, or environmental studies that advance eligible projects. And you're looking again at the recommended 50% of study costs up to $1,500 per project. So I did want to highlight those a little bit, and they are identified in the plan as they stand right now, so they can be looked at online. And if there's any questions about those later, we can dive in a little bit more about that. But I thought it was important to highlight the programs that we're proposing. So, oh, yeah, we're good. Examples of projects that the CIP could support, and I kind of touched on a few already, but again, storefront improvements, accessibility upgrades, new signage, tourism-related investments, energy efficiency upgrades, and small-scale housing improvements. So lots of opportunities there. Next slide. And again. So one of the big questions that comes up is how it's going to be funded. So the program would rely on municipal budget allocations and may also involve partnerships with other levels of government. The township would allocate funding through an annual municipal budget. So every year when you do budget, you would then say how much are we attributing to the CIP program. And even more detailed than that, you can go in and say we'd like to see more money being attributed to this part of the community improvement plan. Like you can specify which programs you really want to target if you'd like, and you can change it on an annual basis. In addition to that, the township is working with Renfrew County as well to align the community improvement plan financial programs with the county's HYPE program, which supports housing and economic development initiatives as well. And we'll just get into a little bit of the why we're doing that in the next slide. Yep, there we go. So this essentially with Renfrew County, what we're able to do by partnering is allow for the township to leverage additional funding. So one of the suggestions that were made by the county when they were reviewing the draft community improvement plan was to ensure that all of the programs that are identified in HYPE, which is the community improvement plan for the Renfrew County, are identified in ours, so that we have the ability to access their funds through CIP, through our CIP. So once we get to a point where the Township of Greater Madawaska CIP is adopted and passed, and let's say someone comes in for an application and we give them 50% of the $2,500, or sorry, up to $2,500, let's say, for a facade improvement, we can then go and submit our money that, so the $2,500 that we allocated to that individual, we would then let Renfrew County know that, and then they would reimburse us 50% of that $2,500. So essentially, the thought process here is that if council of the township allocates $25,000, you can actually maximize it to $50,000 by using the Renfrew County CIP as well. So yeah, very important for those to kind of align so you can tap into a little bit more money and make it go further. Next slide. So why a community improvement plan? Ultimately, the purpose of a CIP is to encourage private investment and improvements within the community. These type of programs help businesses reinvest in their properties, support economic development, and strengthen the local tax base over time. By supporting reinvestment and improvements, the CIP can help communities remain competitive for development and tourism, while also improving the overall appearance and function of buildings and properties. Next slide. So just in terms of where we are in the process, as I'm sure some of you are wondering, we did get some direction from council to explore a community improvement plan, and we did bring a draft to council. I believe it was in October. We have done some public engagement. There was a survey launched. We are having this meeting, and ongoing communication can take place until the minute this thing is passed. And even once it's passed, there's room for improvements later, and we can certainly take that into account at a later date as well. Today's the public meeting, so we're hosting that. That is a statutorily regulated public meeting. So you had to have this meeting in order to proceed with passing the CIP. After today, we refine based on the feedback that's been received, and then council will consider adoption of the CIP. And at that point, we can start getting into, how we implement, how we start procedurally accepting applications and so on and so forth. And that will come as a next step as well. So I'll leave it at that. There was a lot of information in there. So if anyone has any questions or concerns, or maybe, follow-up things that maybe I didn't highlight, and you had some burning questions about CIPs that I didn't get to, yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. we have actually nobody in chambers today, but I will read, I will read this off anyways in case we do get comments later on. Before we open this up for comments, it's worthy to note that any and all comments and information submitted, including identifying information, become part of public record and could be made publicly available at any point, including on Township website and other electronic forms of publications in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. And with that, I'm going to ask if anybody wishes to speak in relation to the CIP, and we are not on Zoom today, so I don't have to look for anybody online to ask questions at this time. When you do, or if you do supply any comments later on, I would ask you to please forward and state your name and address on those comments so that we can loop back in with you. Having nobody here, I will now go on. There's no further comments, obviously, from the public. I'll now go forward to council. Does anybody wish to make comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Hi. I think it was in the draft CIP plan, there is something that's allowed that I'm wondering how it would work. It's not mentioned here. A need to improve municipal services such as roads, sidewalks, street lighting, parking, sewers, water supply, parks and recreation, community facilities and waterfront, streetscaping, that sort of stuff. How would that even work if these are all municipal structures? So that is allowed through a CIP?
Yeah, so there are certain programs that you could put in place that does help with the municipal side of things as well. I know that one in particular that I can use as an example is in the hype, and it isn't in the draft right now, but we could certainly add it. There's the trail. There's a trail one where it actually goes towards improving municipal trails. So if there was like not-for-profit organizations that wanted to improve a trail and make it more accessible or wider to accommodate more people, strollers, whatever else, there's a program there to be able to tap into to improve public spaces. So you can see it be used for that in the programs that we have developed right now. There aren't any, but doesn't mean that in the future you don't introduce something to those along those lines.
Okay, to follow
Thank you. Supplemental?
Yes, please. So then it would have to be a community group that brings it forward and they pay half?
Yeah, in those instances, it'd be a not-for-profit community that would bring it forward. I'd have to think about how you'd go about it if it was a municipality, because again, you'd just be paying yourself if the municipality tried to do it, right? Because we would be assigning money and then use the community improvement plan to be able to take advantage of that. There also is some, I believe, in other municipalities where it's improvements to the streetscape in front of the business as well, where we would allocate funds to, instead of, maybe using just a random bench, you could put a nice, pretty bench and use the money that way as well. So there's certainly some programs that are available in those instances, but for the purpose of this one here, it is not drafted that way.
Okay, could
Supplemental?
one more? Sorry.
Yep.
Is that something, can we change what's included in the CIP over the years? You said it does change. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something you want me to try to include, we can certainly add it in. And then, so the other part of it that, from a procedural standpoint, it's easier to have it in and not assign money to it if it's not a priority, and then decide later to just assign money to it than not have it in at all. Because if you have to amend your CIP, you go through that same statutory process of having to host your public meeting and get feedback and then bring it back for an amendment. Think of it like a zoning amendment almost.
Okay, and to do that,
Supplemental?
I'm sorry, I'm still supplementing. To do that, what's the process right now? I think we have need for better sidewalks or sidewalks at all, street lighting, those kinds of things. How do I give my input to see if the others want to have it in?
Yeah, certainly. So what I would try to, I think the better way to do this, and just thinking process wise, is the secondary plan is really going to highlight quite a bit of your, the type of urban design that you want to incorporate in your municipality. I'd be really hesitant to put that in your community improvement plan right now without that guidance, because what I don't want to happen is, there's some inconsistency. Oh, I really want this light post to be in here, and I like this style, and we don't have a standard established, and all of a sudden every business has a different lamppost. So I would almost say once the secondary plan is complete, that maybe we just revisit this quickly and add it in, versus having it in now and run the risk of somebody coming to us to utilize that program and we're not prepared for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tripp, Councillor Levesque, any questions? Councillor Levesque.
Thank you, Ashley. That was a, excuse me, a great presentation. Just a couple of questions. Two questions. They're different questions, but they're interrelated. One is regarding input and communication. And the reason I say this is in some of my conversations with people, just in general passing, we talk about the CIP and we also talk about the secondary plan, and in some cases, people aren't even aware of either or. And that's not a fault of anybody here, because I know staff has worked really hard at communicating and making sure the information's gotten out there. But I guess my concern is, how do businesses, for instance, become aware of this? Are we intending to reach out specifically to the businesses to make them aware of the program specifically?
Yeah, and actually we went and visited quite a few of the local businesses in advance of this to get some feedback. So I believe staff internally had done that. The idea is that we would create, the CIP could easily be handed off to numerous businesses, either by email or, going to see them individually and just say, hey, heads up, this now exists, and here's some opportunity to take advantage of some improvements. But yeah, certainly.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And just to add to that, it has been circulated by email with all businesses to provide feedback leading up to this meeting.
Great. Thank you. And the second part of that really is around budgeting and really how that program works. So as an example, we mentioned about, if let's presume it moves forward, we approve the program and what's in there as a placeholder. How does the actual budgeting work? Like, so in terms of allocation of funds that are our responsibility. So as an example, some of these programs, for instance, are up to $2,500, but we could have 50 people applying for the same one. So there's a decision to be made, but also what is our impact in terms of budget in those scenarios?
Yeah, so I believe, and our CIO could possibly chime in here, but municipal budget wise, there's an annual allocated amount that would need to be provided. I believe there is money allocated in your budget that is untouched right now for this program for this year. To answer, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so what you would have is council's already approved $25,000 for this year, and it would basically come as a first come, first serve process for distribution.
So just to highlight that the county actually does a 3-month window at the start of every year. And that is something that we can talk about procedurally, how we go about assigning, especially in the first year, because you may get a lot more uptake in the first few years versus maybe once it's been in effect for a little while. Whether we do like an internal, like a take of the next 3 months, hey, submit your applications. We'll analyze these with the 25,000 we have and figure out which one's best. And meets our goals, and then go to a first come, first serve if there's money left over. So that is very common in municipalities to do that. Also benefit for the county, because if they're already doing like what we've missed this year, but next year from January to March, they intake the applications. And after that, it becomes a first come, first serve for the money they have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Popke, I see your hand raised on the screen there.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say thanks for putting this draft together. And I think it's going to be a great program incentive thing for the community. I know I've talked to a lot of guys, and they felt like it would be really beneficial to them. So it'll be nice to see this work out, or work its way forward and see what we can come up with and help the community out. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Popke. Is there any other questions from council or staff?
I just wanted to comment that council has really good questions. I'll really encourage you to have these questions at the council meeting because this is intended to be a public meeting for public consultation. A lot of it would benefit when bringing it forward to council for considerations and comments.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Seeing none. Ashley, I'd like to thank you for that presentation.
No problem.
And if there are no further comments from the public or council, please note that any persons wishing to receive notice of this decision regarding the Community Improvement Plan, CIP, must send an email request to the Township office immediately following this meeting. And in all cases, the said request must be received prior to the date of the decision of council on this matter. Seeing nothing further, this therefore completes the public meeting process of the Community Improvement Plan. I would like to now declare this public meeting closed at 3:30 p.m. Thank you all.